Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I can't reiterate enough how the censorship that is now happening to myself and others in alternative media does not stop with alternative media. It does not stop with the election. It does not stop with the censorship of medical professionals. In fact, I was just watching the latest YouTube creators video, and now they have a specific policy in regards to COVID-19 and vaccination disinformation, one and the same now. So you have to be even more careful by which studies you cite because, hey, who are the authorities outside of the World Health Organization? And the answer is none, but then you cite a World Health Organization official saying that lockdowns are not their position, and that gets fact-checked by the Associated Press. Meanwhile, you have sports podcast networks, and we're going to the man behind the gruelingtruth.com right now, that have not only been demonetized on YouTube, but you got to understand, YouTube is Google, is Alphabet, is all these different, is Android, is Google Pay, is AdSense. And now they've taken your AdSense account away. First of all, introduce yourself to my viewers. For those that don't know, my podcast with John Fitch, Mixed Martial Mindset, has now been hosted on your site for over a year. I want to thank you for that, for daring to put something out there that's a little bit outside of the norm of just sports. But tell people how you started this podcast and really why you're here today.
We started this podcast back in 2015 in the website, thegruelingtruth.com. We started it basically, I interviewed a player by the name of George Visger, who was a guy who had a lot of brain trauma, CTE, caused by, playing football. And I started finding out and talking to a bunch of guys, Jerry Ball, Matt Blair, guys that all had CTE, that a lot of the guys that I interviewed 4 or 5 years ago have now passed away, and the way that they were treated by the NFL. And I was a huge sports fan up and probably until that point. I'm to the point now where I do the sports podcast, but most of our interviews, most of our guests, to George Foreman, Larry Holmes, is to give a guy a place to tell his story that's not controlled by ESPN, because ESPN controls the narrative. Fox Sports Carrier, they control the narrative on everything. And it was like the Ray Rice thing. Nothing was going to happen to him until there was a video of it. And basically our podcast was started just because we wanted to give sports fans a place where they could go get the unvarnished truth. And it seems that the unvarnished truth is not appreciated by mainstream media.
And it shouldn't shock people. A lot of people go, well, Jason, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to kick and scream until the system changes somehow. And eventually, certain things do come out. Certain things do change. But you guys, for instance, are at the forefront for letting somebody like me talk about Conor McGregor. And they go, oh, Jason, if Conor McGregor were really the violent rapist you say, everybody would know about it. Would he be? Because he's worth billions to ESPN. You just mentioned them. He's worth billions to Disney that owns ESPN. He's worth billions to the UFC, WME Entertainment. He's worth money to Dana White. He's worth money to Ari Emanuel. All these different power broker organizations in the realm of entertainment, and that's what sports is. And then a guy like you, how long's the Grueling Truth been around? It's got to be close to a decade, correct?
2015, so a little over half a decade.
So 5 years, you've built up this network. You've gone through their systems. Everybody wants to act like you can get a fair shake on somebody else's platform. But when the platform is an operating system that controls apps, when a platform is a search engine, when a platform is also AdSense, where 90+% of internet traffic goes through, and that's how people make money, and they cut you off. It's not really a platform. It's a tool to control your voice and the narrative. Otherwise, those tools are taken away.
Yeah, and they don't tell you why they take it away. Because Google AdSense, I get on there like November the 1st. And we go on there, we usually make like $30 a day, which not a lot, but for a month, not too bad. And when we go on there, it shows zeros from October the 26th on. And I get a hold of the guy that does the back end of the website, and he's like, I don't know why they took you down. There's no alert why they took us down. And it still shows that we've got a Google AdSense, but there's no money there. And with YouTube, it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we were bringing in $3,000 a month. We got 63,000 subscribers on there. And all of a sudden, I just got something saying, you have been demonetized. You can reapply in 30 days. And there was no reason given why. I don't know why this is happening. And there's no way to call YouTube and find out. There's no way to call Google AdSense and find out. Because even though they're the biggest freaking corporations in the world, there's no customer service because they don't care about customer service. They just want to put out their narrative and get people to believe the way they believe. And it's sickening. And, you know, we get people complaining about the president. I mean, Donald Trump allowed them to censor him and he's done nothing. You know, he talks about vaccines. So to me, when I look at this election, it doesn't matter to me who wins because we're screwed either way. I mean, this is just a slow roll. We're going down a hill or going down a cliff that we've been going down since 2000 when George Bush got in, and really going down it before then, but he ramped it up. And from what I see, people don't understand. Donald Trump doesn't control it. The president doesn't control everything. You know, there's somebody that's running this stuff from behind, and they want us fighting with each other. And I also think, whether it's you or me, they don't like the fact that we can get on here and make money off our own business without them being able to control that money and what goes on. And I mean, it gets worse every day. And it doesn't matter who's in charge. It's going to continue to get worse because it's been ramped up over the last 6 months, and Donald Trump was the president.
And even with those hearings of big tech, you literally on one side had some Democrats out there not even asking questions, just saying it's a witch hunt and how great these corporations are. But then on the other side, they were calling for more censorship. Why aren't you censoring information about Zionism or Holocaust denial or conspiracy theories or militias or, you know, whatever they want? And it's like, why are you calling for more censorship when the way that you debunk these things is with better evidence, more information, and open discussion? And like you said, there is no recourse. You know, they sat up there and they got asked that question. And they all lied. They said, oh, everybody's got an appeals process. Everybody's got an appeals process. But can you imagine to walk into work one day with no explanation, not pointing out one video of over 1,500 that I had on there, right? You go in and they're like, yeah, well, we think you might be harmful content. You can review it in a month. Well, what do I have to take down? Well, we can't tell you that. We don't know exactly what's there. Okay. Should I just keep working? Well, you can keep working. Yeah, that's fine. 7 months later, you still don't have an answer, but you've showed up every day. Your analytics are great. You still haven't broken any rules. You haven't gotten any content strikes. And, every time I run into one of these barriers where I feel like I have them, like, for instance, the last thing that I had to review was a thumbnail which had Robert Downey Jr. in blackface from Tropic Thunder. It had Dan Aykroyd in blackface from Trading Places. And it had Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, in blackface from his jackassery. Now, he happened to do a home video at some summer camp where he's in full blackface. He stuffed his pants like a python. I mean, he goes full stereotype. So I have the headline Python on there. And as you know, because you watch some of my videos, my thumbnails are my backdrops anyway. So this is a video from, I don't know, 8 months ago or something like that. And all of a sudden, my thumbnail gets pulled down, and it says it's because of offensive content. So I appeal it on the air, and I say, well, it's really funny because, number one, you're selling Tropic Thunder and Trading Places. Tropic Thunder happens to have on the cover Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. So that can't be offensive. You're selling it here on the platform. Now, number two, Justin Trudeau did this, and he went full stereotype. There's nothing sexual about me circling his pants and some clothing stuffed in there. And on top of that, on top of all of it, the title is Justin Trudeau went full Robert Downey Jr. You never go full Robert Downey Jr. Saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't go in blackface. So how is any of that offensive content? And when that happens, you just don't get a response. So I know that you're over on Rockfin. what are your plans going forward? Because, yeah, Rockfin's, and I love Rockfin, and guys, sign up for Rockfin after this. Endorse me, endorse him. It doesn't matter. If you are signed up as a premium member, you get all our premium content. So make sure you're checking out the Grueling Truth. But what are your plans? Is there recourse? Because, look, Google AdSense is not even almost a platform. It's like taking you away from PayPal or a credit card or a bank account, again, with no reason given other than they might not like your speech.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I guess we reapplied 2 years ago. We got demonetized from YouTube because I did a show where we brought up, transgender athletes. It was the one where you had track and field in Connecticut, and you had the people that were really men winning the high school state championships over women. And I didn't say anything derogatory. I just think it's bullcrap. There's obvious that there's two genders, especially when you're talking about sports, and then a male has an advantage. So what they're doing is you had Title IX come in 30 or 40 years ago from the NCAA. That was to give women a fair and equal playing field. But now, for some reason, they want to take that playing field away because of LGBTQ rights. And I mean, to me, it's sickening and it's stupid. And I have a right to my opinion. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm the kind of guy that thinks this. I think this government should be leaving us the hell alone. If we're not harming anybody else, mind your own damn business. I mean, I don't think that's that hard. And I think everything I read from the Founding Fathers, which everything I read, maybe not think so highly of the Founding Fathers also, but that's the way this country was supposed to be. Everybody left countries where they were oppressed to come here to be left alone. And now the problem is we're oppressed again. And I don't like the Black Lives Matter. I mean, I think, Black lives obviously do matter. All lives matter, white, no matter what color you are. But Black Lives Matter is basically a political organization that is run by white people to control black people. They don't want black people to have their own organization that's called Black Lives Matter because the rich white guys want to control everything.
Well, to that point, look how much they've demonized Ice Cube for just talking to both, not only the Trump administration, but he also talked to Biden's people. Biden's people said that they would start moving on something possibly after the election. Trump's people wanted to move on something now. And then, even though, despite other, prominent black hip hop stars endorsing Trump, including Lil Wayne and others, they still demonized him. And he's like, this guy just pledged 500, I think it was 500 billion, not 500 million, half a $1 trillion to a program that, Ice Cube, an entertainer, a rapper, put forward. And if you watch it, it's not about diversity. It's not about people of color. It's not about the Democratic Party. He said it's specifically for African Americans that are descendants of slaves in this country. And I respect that. He's not trying to pander to groups, and he's saying he's trying to get it done. And yet he is the one that's trying. They try to cancel Ice Cube. Good luck. Try to ostracize the guy. I think there are some people that are above that cancel culture, even if the most horrific thing comes out. But this isn't a horrific thing. And that speaks to the fact that everything seems to be upside down right now when people are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it is upside down. And it's sickening that people are not allowed to have a voice unless it agrees with the people that run these companies. And I mean, it used to be YouTube was for all. I can tell you this. I discovered Jason Burmas because of YouTube. I found loose change. And I was one that didn't believe that the government didn't have anything to do with it because I watched that morning when those towers came down and they interviewed firefighters, and the firefighters talked about bombs and explosives going off in the building. So the only way really, if this was 1980 and that would have happened, I don't think the truth ever comes out. And the sad thing is Donald Trump used to say if he was ever the president, he would bring the truth out about that and the Kennedy assassination. And we never saw any of that.
Yeah, and he failed twice on the Kennedy assassination. Now, granted, there were some breadcrumbs there. There were definitely some things that hadn't been out in the public arena. I did deep dives into both of those dumps. But just like you said, the president, the executive, really doesn't control the executive branch anymore. And the executive branch is beyond checks and balances. We had a judicial, an executive, and a legislative for a reason. But when the president really isn't the head of that executive branch, like you alluded to in the beginning, what can we do? And when he can't even expose the deep state from 50 plus years ago via the Kennedy assassination documents, how in the hell is he going to expose the deep state in 2020? How in the hell are you going to take people down that are supposedly in this swamp when you have swamp creatures in your administration from the beginning, from Mattis to Bolton to even Haspel now, to Pompeo now, to Barr, who, laughs when people ask him, how could Epstein have killed himself? Oh, he definitely killed himself. Don't worry about it. And people roll with that punch. You're a sports network, but at the same time, like you said, you kind of pioneered talking about CTE, and now, that's all over the place, and, we're seeing the NFL respond to that. So again, it shows that if you keep punching up, eventually things can change. But do you see that as a possibility if we let these tech overlords run rampant and do to you what they do to everybody? Again, it's not just going to be sports networks. It's not just going to be the election. It's not just going to be medical advice. It's anything outside of the narrative. So how do we push back and push back hard now?
I don't know if we let it go too far already. Because once it's the old slippery slope thing, like with gun control, if you let them do this, then everything just kind of goes downhill. I mean, everybody would have to stand up at some point. And right now, what our government has done to us is they've played the race card on everything. They played the race card on us, but we don't understand the fact that we're all slaves, black or white. Now anymore, it's the rich people or the predator class against the poor people. And the best way to control the poor people is to scare the hell out of them and then try to separate them and make them fight with each other. So you don't see what's really going on in the back because you're too busy arguing with the guy next to you about whether you're a racist or not.
Yeah, and you know what? That drives me nuts. But you're right. Some people always want to play that card. Some people are driven by the talking points that are on mainstream media, whether it be Fox News or MSNBC. It's all the same flavor or a slightly different flavor of the same bullshit, I should say. And unfortunately, people are buying into these narratives more than ever. One of the reasons I moved out to Iowa, I really think that we're in trouble over the next few days, weeks, and even months, depending on what happens with this election. But like I said, there's going to be large segments of the population that are unhappy no matter what. Where that goes are, to me, going to be different levels of chaos, with sports still not fully back. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot going on. With life still not fully back, what are your plans with this podcast? What are you getting a feeling from all the sports podcasters in general over these last 8 months?
Well, the first 4 months of it, there was no sports, which made it really difficult. And I know that we just signed up with Rockfin right about the time this happened. And now we're back, but we're going to go more back to where we were, where we interviewed the legends. We let them tell their stories. And then we're going to deep dive into the NCAA, which I know YouTube didn't like because they took a video down I did with Rashad McCants, who wrote the book Plantation Foundation, which was about the University of North Carolina. They had the big scandal where you had all kind of football players and basketball players at North Carolina that were given courses or classes that didn't even exist, so they would be eligible to play. And the problem was, Rashad McCants gets out with a degree, they can't really do anything. And we've seen this over history. Dexter Manley, the great Washington Redskin, he graduated from Oklahoma State and couldn't read or write because they basically, the NCAA, big corporation again, they control the narrative. They'll tell you they're student athletes, but they're not. They're using these kids to make money, and it's just sad. So where I see this going is more on that, more on the CTE. I know the YouTube thing was probably our NFL show and me ripping on the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't want to turn on an NBA playoff game and see Black Lives Matter on a guy's jersey. I just don't. If I want to watch sports, it's to get away from all this other BS that we have to deal with all the time. I mean, I watched the football game last night. I didn't even want to watch it just because I didn't want to watch the election crap anymore.
I'm with you, man. It's tough for me. I'm a big MMA fan, and sitting through those Amazon commercials where they're, deifying these workers that are literally putting a thermostat to your head as a gun or saying, they're heroes, and going through all the COVID commercials and, we got to make the environment better and all the mess. It drives me nuts. It almost, and I do this a lot now, is I will purposely not start watching it live until 3 hours later so I can skip through all of it as it goes and then kind of catch up to the final event, because I can only watch the same Amazon commercial 26 times before I'm like, the brainwashing is over the top. It's too much.
Or the UPS commercial where they're running around, the guy's got the mask on and he's racing the other guy. It's sickening. And I mean, the thing is this, it used to be 15 years ago, me and my wife sit around and there'd be new shows every night we would watch. Now we don't watch anything. We watch YouTube. Hell, we watch a lot of Jason Burles now. My wife loves watching your show. And she's probably watching this now. And, you know, there is a point that, like, when I first started getting into what they call conspiracy theories, which is just the truth most of the time, she thought it was nuts. And then when you see this slowly go from 2001 to 2010 to now and the way it's happened, I mean, I don't know too many people around me, at least, that don't believe that this is all a bunch of crap. But I think that in the end, people are afraid to fully believe it, because if you actually truly dig into it, you find out the truth, it'll scare the hell out of you. And it's a lot easier to just bury your head in the sand and just hope shit goes away. And the problem is, when you bury your head in the sand, shit doesn't go away. It just continues to mount. By the time you pull your head out, you're covered in shit.
Absolutely. And you know what? The debunkers love to flip that narrative. They like to say, well, you believe in conspiracy theories because it actually makes you feel better. And it makes you feel interconnected in the world. And I'm like, what kind of fucking planet are you living on? No, it actually, if you take it seriously, you realize you have this burden where you're constantly having to fight this false narrative that's portrayed in entertainment, in news media, and by our politicians, that is oppressing the large masses at an alarming rate. And this latest development, again, when they're censoring sports channels, guys, should alarm everybody other than thegruelingtruth.com and following you on Twitter at The Grueling Truth, not The Grueling Truth, but if you type in The Grueling Truth, it should come up. It's at Grueling Truth. And on Rockfin, how can people support you?
We've got a GoFundMe page, which I haven't really promoted that much yet because I've been trying to straighten everything else out. Facebook actually demonetized our videos, which that was another $1,500. So we went in September between AdSense, YouTube, and Facebook monetization. We made almost $6,000. And we have dropped down now where this month, the month coming up, we project probably maybe 500 to $1,000 is all we'll make. And right now, my wife, where she worked, they furloughed her. They laid her off permanently a couple months ago. It's difficult. I've got guys like Sam Teets, Steve Risley, who played in 1981 for the Indiana Hoosiers, won a national championship. But we went from having probably 60 podcasts and probably 20, 25 writers to having maybe 30 podcasts a month and maybe 3 or 4 writers because we just can't afford to pay them anymore.
Brother, I'm rooting for you. I think your network's important. I want to thank you personally for giving me a voice, and we should do it again on the flip of the election madness and see where this goes in a couple months. If you need anything else, let me know, and I'd be happy to have you on again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jason, and we appreciate your podcast. Like I said, the more shows you do, the more stuff me and my wife have to watch or having to watch at night.
All right. Thank you so much. Guys, it is thegruelingtruth.com. Make sure to go check it out. Again, especially if you're into sports. Again, he let me talk about the McGregor thing. He promoted it on his front page. His site gets traffic. A lot of people don't love Jason Burmes, but he allowed me a voice. So go follow them over there. Remember, this voice has been censored on this platform just like him. I mean, he's demonetized. We've been demonetized 7+ months. $5, $10, $15. You mean the world to me. Shout out to Gritch. I see you did a big donation today. Jesse Schmidt, always love to see you, not only in the chat, but over here as well. Jesse Schmidt, one of the guys that followed me over from We Are Change. We really admit that or appreciate that. Guys, go check out the documentary films. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, especially Invisible Empire and New World Order to find, and Shade the Motion Picture right now, and Rockfin. Guys, this will probably be up free all weekend. We're not posting any of that from today, which I think was like a 40-minute broadcast on YouTube, because I think it's important. Number one, I had something going on in my eye, man. I was like itching at my eye. It wasn't pink eye, but there was something stuck in it. That's one of the reasons we're not putting it up. But there's so much exclusive content at Rockfin now. And if they take me off of this platform, that's where you're going to find me. So go make the free account. If you do go premium for myself, The Grueling Truth, John Fitch, Ben Askren, Nico House, The Convo Couch, Jimmy Dore, whatever, you get everybody's stuff. It's a Netflix for creators. I can't push it enough. And guys, think about that. We're talking about censorship of sports commentators at this point. Love you guys. See you on the flip.